How's it rockin', Dween Nation? You're listening to the Dween Sports Podcast. We're about to get underway. But before you give us a listen, we'd love if you could like, comment, subscribe, and share. We are posting weekly sports content, and we want to build up the brand that is Dween Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy.
Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, alongside Genoa Agudelo. And as you can see on the screen here, we got the CFP rankings out that came out on Tuesday. Today's our time to react to what we've seen from the CFP committee, what we like about the rankings, what we don't like about the rankings, just the outlook of what needs to happen over the next 2 weeks for these teams to kind of start figuring themselves out into this rankings. There's a couple teams on the outside, some teams on the inside that probably won't make it, that they might fall out due to a loss this week, next week, in their championship. That's all going to be talked about today on the Dween Sports Podcast. But before we do, how you doing, Genoa?
Yo, college Dewey Nation. How's it going there, Justin? Hey, we're doing good. We are on the road to crowning a new national champion, Justin. And not only that, this is a new playoff format that is just so exciting there. That's going to start where I believe New Year's or the week before New Year's and last all the way to January 20th. Justin, this is going to be a fantastic road to the college playoffs. My team's in it. Your team's kind of in the mix of it, Justin. We got some legendary teams. We got some, Heisman front runners. So, maybe if Colorado or so can kind of get kind of catch up and maybe they can kind of make their run into the Big 12 and possibly win that and have their fellow Heisman front runners / candidates there. So this is very exciting. I mean, you can make the argument one of the most exciting, anticipating, roads to the national championships. Last year, it was Michigan and Washington State. Both teams are not the same. Both teams aren't really in a winning kind of state of mind. They both lost their, respective head coaches. And so, you know what, Justin? It's going to be very interesting. I might mention both of their quarterbacks in that championship game went first round, right? And so, it's a new era, Justin. Someone new is going to win the championship, and it just doesn't get more exciting than this.
No, I completely agree. To me, the 12 teams, some people like it, some people don't like it. I really like it. The 4-team playoff was great. It's just less exciting. I guess that's what I'm looking at. For those that were worried, like, oh, there was so much drama at the 4 spot, with Florida State and Georgia. To me, unfortunately, I think it's just going to be more. I think there's still going to be a ton of drama for teams trying to get in here. Like, looking, off the bat, there's some teams that the rankings are just like, why are these players here? Why are these teams here? The teams on the outside are going to be wanting to get on the inside. Obviously, everybody's going to be talking about SEC bias because there's 4 teams that are kind of 4 to 5 teams in the SEC that could make the playoff. But just kind of, I think we're just going to kind of run down these 14 teams that are kind of in and on the bubble. Obviously, Oregon, if you don't know, has already clinched a spot in the Big Ten championship. So they'll be playing for that number 1, seed in the Big Ten. And obviously they haven't lost yet this year. I don't expect them to lose any games. They don't have a hard schedule rest of regular season. So it looks like they'll probably meet Ohio State unless Indiana shocks us all and gets a victory this weekend. But that is probably the game of the week with Ohio State and Indiana, just to see is Indiana a good team. I mean, they're ranked 5 while having a strength of schedule outside the top 100. So they're dominating bad teams. Obviously they played, Washington, the Huskies. They played Michigan Wolverines, who are both championship teams last year. But this year, they're nowhere near that. Obviously, they lost tons of personnel and talent and everything like that. I don't think Indiana was expecting their strength of schedule to be this low, but it is this low. And a lot of people are hating on it. And I'm not going to say I'm hating on it, but it's something that's like, we need to see it. If they get smoked by 25 plus against Ohio State, they need to be out of this list pronto. That'd be my view on it. What do you think about Indiana, Ohio State, and the Big Ten?
So, Justin, first off with Indiana, looking at their schedule, they beat FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington State, you mentioned. They went to Michigan State a few weeks ago, dominated, and they beat the reigning champs, Michigan. And then they get a matchup in Ohio State there in Columbus. I'm very concerned there. Looking at their team so far, I like. I'm not the biggest fan of the quarterback, Rourke here, Curtis Rourke. I think he's decent. He's had a great season, 21 touchdowns, only to 4 picks. But just in that strength of that schedule, I mean, can he have a great game in Columbus? I just don't think so. Looking at the Big Ten there, Justin, you mentioned that we could see Oregon and Ohio State. I mean, the top two teams in the rankings currently. We can get a kind of natty matchup before the before the playoffs even begin. We can get that in the Big Ten championship. I believe that is played in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium there. So that'll be a kind of predetermined natty there, which will be a phenomenal game there. First of all, with Dylan Gabriel, I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. I think that he's one of the better left-hand quarterbacks you've ever seen. Matched up there with Will Howard, who's having a pretty excellent season there for the Buckeyes. And they have a pretty good set of running backs there in Ohio State with Judkins and Henderson, I believe, if I'm right there. Kind of a two-headed monster there. And Oregon's front seven's pretty tough. I'm not gonna lie, Justin. They're one of the more underrated defenses in the nation. They don't give up too much. They're not a team that they're a fluky kind of defense. So that will be a matchup I will have my eyes all over there because both offenses are stacked. I like Ohio State's chances this weekend against Indiana for sure.
Yeah, I think that this game is interesting just to see because I feel like a lot of people that Indiana is not the team we normally see in this top area, so maybe a lot of people are cheering for this to be that Cinderella awesome story. I'm worried. I think Ohio State knows what it's going to be like, what the storyline is heading into this game, and they're at home. I think they might just run wild on the Hoosiers, which to me would be a sad story, but they would kick out Indiana. And for the teams that are like, why is Indiana really over Alabama? I know they had 0 losses, but the strength of schedule is just wild. And when you're playing in the SEC, you're playing hard teams just about every single week. So you're going to have 1 to 2 losses, but you should still be like if Alabama and Indiana were on a neutral site today, they played tonight, Alabama would be favored by like 15 to 20 points. Like that's
Absolutely.
That's the hard thing I guess the committee has to do is like, do we pick the best teams, which it might be SEC, too many SEC teams in this, or do we pick, one from each conference because it's the fairest play? That's a hard discussion. I mean, I don't know if maybe there's like an inside SEC bias to me as being an Aggie. I'm like, hey, these SEC teams are the best teams. You want the best teams in the playoff, throw the more SEC teams in. But, that's just my thought on it. I want to get your take, though. Since you're a Texas guy, Texas they're at 3. They have also been criticized, even though they're in the SEC, of not having the toughest schedule. They did lose to Georgia, had that game. Their best win is Vanderbilt. What do you think the outlook for their season is? Like, I know they got a good home game against Kentucky, and then they got to go into College Station next Saturday.
Justin, it all falls in the hand of Quinn Ewers there, okay? Quinn Ewers he's had some great moments this year. I've had the pleasure to attend many Longhorn games, but unfortunately, including that Georgia loss. I was there in attendance. Very tough loss there. Very hostile environment there. I was right there witnessing all the student section throwing all the bottles. I promise you, Dewey Nation, I was not one of them. But it was very hostile there. And Justin, with Quinn Ewers, he kind of flinches on tough pressure. So in 2 weeks when they go to Kyle Field, I know you'll be there. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very tough there, Justin, because I feel like Quinn Ewers cannot handle pressure. He's not a quarterback that can run outside the pocket and make a throw. He's not as fast as our guy Arch Manning there, who is eyeing, some more at least a little bit more playing time before the season's over. I'm very concerned just a little bit. I think our offense is kind of put together. We are kind of running on fumes at running back there. We lost our first 2 running backs, but then we've had Wisner, who's been pretty good. Blue has been kind of, had some great games. But Justin, we haven't really had a breakout game from any of our receivers at all this year. I've kind of been waiting for guys like Bond and Golden to kind of break out. They haven't really had the season I expected. Bond is only at 483 yards receiving. Golden is at 417. And, our leading receiver is our tight end in Gunnar Helm, who's phenomenal. And I do think that maybe he's a guy that NFL teams should be looking at in this year's draft. I think he could be a high-end second to third rounder, pretty solid tight end there. But, Justin, I feel like, we haven't had our key breakout offensive game yet. I mean, obviously, we poured out 52 week one against Colorado State, and then we poured 56 against, UTSA, 51 against UL Monroe. And then we had 49 against Florida. It was great to pour 34 on Oklahoma, but, Justin, these are teams that are not really going to be contending. And so it's very concerning. We were only able to score 15 against Georgia. And that's the prime example from my Longhorns that I'm very concerned about how we cannot go against the rush. That game, Ewers played, I guess, a quarter and a half. Then they, beginning, he got kind of nicked up. They put in Arch Manning. And then after halftime, Arch Manning played a drive or two, I believe. Then they put back when Ewers. And so all that was because they could not handle the pressure there. And it's very concerning there, Justin, when we go to Kyle Field in 2 weeks. And, obviously, I'm very confident in my team to probably win after they have a bye, I believe. And, they don't play the first round. But if they were to play in the quarterfinals, that's something I'm very concerned about there, Justin. So as a UT fan, it's exciting, but very, very concerning.
Yeah, and the discussion that I've been hearing and that I've been thinking about is Texas just said that they're gonna beat Kentucky this weekend at home. Then they go into College Station, and if they're to lose that game, they obviously aren't going to be a part of the SEC championship at that point. But do they still make it? Just based on their winning, who they beat this year, all the other teams that are kind of right here at this close part, like are they put over Alabama or Ole Miss or Georgia? I don't think they're put past those guys if they lose to A&M. Miami, I think they're a better team than Miami, but somehow, Miami's been a favorite for the CFP, and they're still in it. Boise State gets that G5 rep. That's why they're right there. And same with BYU for the Big 12. So it's like, where does Texas find its spot if they lose in 2 weeks? And then the last couple things we should discuss is these SEC teams. I really wanted Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, 3 teams in the top 10 right here. Obviously, Alabama beat Georgia, and Georgia, just beat Tennessee, and Ole Miss beat Georgia, and so it's just been a back and forth. You beat him, you beat him. It's confusing. For the CFP, it's probably hard to kind of put who and who ahead of each other. But what are your thoughts on how it's set up right now, and how it might look in if these teams kind of all land against each other in the college football playoff?
Justin, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not trying to toot your horn or mine. I believe that the committee should allow as many SEC teams as possible. For example, we all love Boise State. They're kind of the darling of this year. They have a Sean Ginty there who is Derrick Henry Jr., Frank Gore Jr. perhaps. But that's really it, Justin. You take him off that offense. How interesting and how really good is Boise State? You look at their schedule. I mean, are they really that good? So I feel like the committee needs to include as many SEC teams as possible. And Justin, that does include your beloved Texas A&M Aggies. I think that, yes, I have my doubts about your coaching staff. But Justin, you guys are undefeated in SEC play up until that loss. Was it South Carolina, I believe?
Yeah.
And so, Justin, that's enough for me to make the playoffs. If y'all beat Texas, automatically in. Even if Texas loses, they should still be in it. Maybe at 9 or 10, I would say. But you got to have Georgia, and you got to have Alabama. You got to have Ole Miss because they beat Georgia. Maybe Tennessee might be kind of the back end that doesn't get in, which is fine there, Justin, because looking at Tennessee's schedule, they did lose to Arkansas. They did lose to, I think they beat Bama, but then they lost to Georgia. So, that's really enough to not have them in. I guess if it comes down between Tennessee and Texas as that final SEC team, you got to go with my Longhorns there because if they beat, Kentucky, I think that kind of solidifies it. But, with Tennessee, they're not – I feel like they should be in it. But to answer your question, I do think that committee should have as many SEC teams as possible. And that possibly might be possibility of kicking out Indiana. If Indiana loses to Ohio State, I do think they should be kind of kicked out for sure. Switch with A&M because, Justin, you just got to look at the point differential, the matchups, the schedule. I feel like teams like, A&M is a dark horse. They're, I don't want to toot your horn, but I think that now that Connor Weigman is no longer the starting quarterback, we like Marcel Reese there. I do think that he has potential. We're not really sure, Justin. You know what the update is on your star running back there and Le'Veon? Is he done for the year?
He
I
is.
think
That's the
he's
big blow.
okay. Okay, yes, he's done for the year. But I do like your backup guy. I do like what's his name? I think it's Daniels, I believe.
Correct.
Solid guy there. And you got some good. You got some good receivers there. Noah Thomas is having a quiet season. I like Barber. I like Allen. Y'all have some good talent there. Marcel Reese is a threat at running the football, and your defense is pretty tough there, Justin. So I feel like to answer your question, the committee has to include as many SEC teams possible because just you got to think about the ratings. No one's really interested in watching Indiana. No one's really interested in, yes, Boise State. They have, pretty, interesting running back to watch. But is that team really going to challenge a BYU or Ole Miss or a Miami if that's something like that? Or even if it's like, for some reason, they turn out to play Georgia. That would be a blowout of blowouts. Same for like SMU if that were to happen, or Indiana. So definitely think they should have as many SEC teams as possible, just because of the talent, the schedule, and in the conference that they're in overall.
Yeah, it's because it's hard. I'm trying to find the spots for these teams because you got to give one to the Big Ten, which I'm just gonna go. It's gonna be Oregon, right? Or even like two to three Big Ten teams will get in. Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State. I think they're kind of locked in. They'll make the college football playoff. Then you got an SEC team. Just say Texas. Texas gets in. So that there's an SEC team. Then you got Notre Dame. If they don't lose another game, they play Army this weekend, USC. Just say they win out, they're going to be in. Then you have Boise State and BYU, or one of those. Like Boise State's probably going to be in, just winning out, and they get the G5 spot. Then you got BYU. It's going to be them or the Colorado Buffaloes to get in. But one Big 12 team will get in. One G5 team will get in. Then you got Miami. If SMU beats Miami in the ACC Conference Championship, one of those two teams get in. So that's three. We've already covered 6 spots, and then we also have to cover 6 spots. Then you're gonna have Bama, Ole Miss, and Georgia in. That's that's 3 more spots. It's just it's clogging up the lane for like a Penn State. Will they be in? Yes, probably. Then you got Indiana. If they get smoked by Ohio State, do they just drop out? If the Aggies pull off the upset, do they jump in? What about Tennessee? To me, if you look at the resumes, Tennessee and Texas, for example, if Texas loses, Tennessee's biggest win is Alabama, and Texas' biggest win would still be just Vanderbilt. So would Tennessee get the vault over Texas? It's a tough situation because Texas has been at the top just about all year. Their only loss was to Georgia right now at the time. So it's like, what do we do here? They're going into a tough environment at Kyle Field. We're going to be loud there. So that's a tough one. How much do you damage their reputation in the CFP rankings? So there's a lot to be underway. I'm pretty sure we're going to get 3 Big Ten teams. I think we might get right now. We currently have 1, 2, 3, 4 SEC teams. That's to me the minimum. You're going to get 4, maybe 6 if A&M and Tennessee maybe squeak in there. But that's 9 spots. Then you have just 3 others for Miami, Boise State, and a Big 12 team. So I guess that's a possibility. But then Notre Dame, the independent, is there. So there's just so much going on. A lot will change in this list. I'm fairly certain on it.
Oh, yeah.
Especially after Saturday's football slate. But yes, Dwayne Nation. That's just kind of our reaction to seeing the CFP rankings out for Week 13. We got our CFP. College football predictions for the week. We got some NFL talk for sure, as you know it. Fantasy football stuff with starts of the week, bold predictions, and we got game predictions for both college football and NFL. So a lot of content rolling down the way. Let us know what you think about the CFP rankings. Is this accurate? Is this way off? What's the CFP doing? I could see both sides of it for sure. Are we too much SEC in here? What's going on? Or is SEC are the best teams? Throw them in. Or is the Big Ten have the best teams? Let us know everything, all your thoughts in the comments. And as always, like, comment, share, subscribe. Thank you guys for listening. And Jano, send us out.
Yo, Dwayne Nation, we are on the road, like I mentioned, to the Natty there. So Justin and I are going to be releasing a lot of college content all the way here until we crown a new national champion there. So let us know what you think for sure. And also, Dwayne Nation, let us know if there's a dark horse. For me, I'm going to throw mine out there, Penn State. Justin, I'm guessing he has his Aggies as his dark horse.
I would probably, if my dark horse is probably Alabama at 7. But
Okay,
I would
okay.
I would love to say A&M, but go ahead.
Well, we'll see what happens there, and definitely check out our college rapid picks, NFL rapid picks. We got a lot of content there. So, Twin Nation, thanks for watching. We love you guys, and as always, peace.
Peace.